Hello, everybody. It's Frank Norris from the Frank and Stan chat. Welcome. And we have the usual suspect, Stan Johnson.
Oh, the number under here, should I, Frank?
and this week we have a guest, Russell Harvey. Hello, Russell.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Where are you? You're not at home, are you? You're on holiday somewhere.
No, I'm in the Shepherd's Hut in Staithes, next to Ridge Hall. So
Wow.
I'm literally looking out at the most amazing countryside. It's blown a gale, and one of the little chairs that I was hoping to sit on is fallen over. So I've just come inside. But when I look out, it's just this most incredible scenery.
Now, Russell and I have known each other probably, I think, since about 2013 when I started working with the co-op. So,
yes.
So just before we get into what's caught our eye this week, do you want to give us a little bit of background then, Russell, as to what you do and where you've been and how we know each other?
Yeah. So total career essentially in learning, leadership, organisational development, and it's 5 years now as the resilience coach. Good old classic LinkedIn strapline. I support leaders to find their clarity and make the decisions that they need to by building on their resilience, understanding VUCA, and understanding their strengths. And that came from, actually, my last permanent role was at the cooperative group where we met, Frank. And not long after I joined, all the things that the co-op was having challenges with, just 6 months after I joined, that all landed on all of us. So all of the leaders that I was supporting were literally coming to me with their head in their hands and going, Russell, the world's fallen on our heads. What do we do? I said, well, there's this thing called VUCA and there's resilience. So let's work on those. And then when I left and set up by myself, did a diploma in coaching and did the navel gazing around, what's my USB? Who am I? I went, well, I am the resilience coach. So hence the name of the business.
Well, you're very welcome. And it's, I think, Stan and I started these chats, I think, in March, and we wondered whether or not they would run more than, say, one or two. But in that time, there's been so much upheaval. And this week is no different to any of the other weeks since we started doing these. And of course, this week is the week when we've had the GCSE. We've tried to avoid the word debacle, but actually it's a...
Can't avoid it, Frank.
It's just terrible. And what we'll do in this discussion, I think we'll be bringing Russell and Stan into this in terms of the psyche of head teachers at the moment, how they're feeling, how they need to prepare, how they can help themselves prepare, and perhaps actually seek help from others in terms of how they can sort of put themselves in a good position for the new term. But anyway, so this week, what's caught your eye, Stan? Anything?
The one that stunned me was the DFE's debunking of the A-level myths. I don't think I've ever seen such a weak piece of writing go out as a ministerial edit. I can't believe it's still up, because the classic one says that one of the things it's debunking is that disadvantaged children or children from poor areas were disadvantaged. This isn't true. It then goes on to show how it is true. It's an unbelievably poor piece of writing, and I understand someone doing it, but I would have thought somebody higher up would have said you can't put that out.
Yeah.
It's still up and it's still out. So I'm just stunned at the quality of that.
Well, what about you, Russell? Anything caught your eye this week?
Yes. So a German university is often offering idleness grants. So that caught my eye.
Big grants.
What happens if you're already highly qualified in that area?
When I saw the strapline, my brain went to this idea of universal basic income as I think one of the many things we need to do as a society is just reflect on hundreds of things that we could do differently, furlough schemes coming to an end. But so when I read a bit more about it, it's this literally, it's like the university saying it's not a myth. It's University of Fine Arts in Hamburg, a €1,600 scholarship, and you've got to answer like 4 questions. what do you not want to do? For how long do you not want to do it? Why is it important not to do this thing in particular? And why are you the right person not to do it?
If you answer the first question with fill this in and then don't do the next three, you qualify.
But there is a reasoning behind it. It's a case of like, there's a real tension between the world's in a different place. There is no Planet B, which is the title of a different book that I'm going to read. But we also have to sort of get on and get an economy moving. So there's a real tension here. So that's their intention behind it, around how do we find new ways and different ways of doing things. And the link to the resilience piece is resilience is all about learning and adapting and doing things differently. So I just think this is today, now, is real opportunity to trying to go, let's not do some things the same way we always did. Let's try and find some new ways to do things.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I was talking to Russell yesterday in preparation for this, and I was thinking about the volatility of the world at the moment, and should we be, how harsh should we be on leaders who actually clearly fail, you know, in a very volatile world? And there's sort of like, I don't know if this is what people want me to say, but I'm going to say it. There's sort of like a level at which you think, actually, I think this is bordering on incompetence here. This is not just about a volatile world. This is about the person's capability to do that. Yeah. And what have they done to prepare themselves for the clear challenges that are ahead? And I worry a little bit about some senior leaders, not just senior politicians, but senior leaders, and how their staff may view them when they go back in September, when actually they perhaps have done a lot of prep, or they haven't done a lot of prep. But actually, when all that starts to unravel, you know, how will they view staff who are critical of them, and how resilient are they to actually cope with the emotion of that? Because that you know, none of us here have had to deal with any of the challenges these head teachers are going to be facing in a couple of months. So I'm just interested, really, how, you know, at what point do you actually sort of kick in this sense of, well, actually, this is really, really poor leadership. This is not just about resilience. This is about just poor preparation, poor implementation, lack of clarity around thinking, you know, and what can leaders do to make sure that they don't get in that position?
Yeah. Stan, do you want to start? Or
I think there are two things there, Frank. One is you're talking about being incompetent at that. If you're incompetent at it, the chances are you've no realization that you're not doing this well. And so for those people, probably they're not going to find out until people start to tell them that what they're doing isn't good enough. But there is the other side of it are those people who don't think they're good enough, even though they are, and the pressure they'll put themselves under because they won't be able to reward themselves for any of this. The classic, I'm sure Russell gets it all the time, when you try to get someone to say how good they are, the sentence always has a but halfway through it, and they start to then go into the self-criticism, because the people, especially teachers, can't understand that the things they do aren't, as they describe it, common sense. They're actually an accumulation of experience and knowledge over a number of years. And I think school leaders particularly are very good at going, well, it's not magic, it's common sense, and beating themselves up, rather than going, wow, you know, we're in unprecedented times and I'm coping with it.
Yeah.
Or alternatively, I'm not coping with it, can somebody help?
No. There's a number of different factors in there for me. I think life is about the grid of confidence versus capability. That's brilliant. And you do need individuals to have a level of self and awareness to want to even talk about that. And from an education point of view, somebody that's going to provide the support and the challenge around that, the governing body. So you're back to again around the importance, the relevance of governors of a school around what the role they've played in supporting their head teachers through this. And if anybody in the governing body has been noticing, there might be a risk here that there is some level of capability issue, that they are equipped and comfortable having the conversation with people around this. So yeah, and the common sense thing, and somebody being able to big themselves up. So I do a lot of work on people's strengths. So there's a psychometric called strength scope. There's 24 strengths. And one of those strengths is common sense. So it's one of 24. So every time somebody has a strength of common sense and you try and get them to think about it, is absolutely fascinating. Their response is, I don't understand why I should try and talk about this, Russell, because it's just obvious to me. They go, yeah, because your strength is common sense. Not everybody has got this as an energizer, as a strength. It's not that they can't do it, but not everybody's energized by it. So that's just an extra level of curiosity around what have people's strengths been played to throughout all of these challenges. Have they anywhere within there being able to play to those strengths, or have they actually been having to do lots and lots of things that de-energize them and they struggle with? And that's going to add to knocking their resiliency levels as well. If you're having to do all those things that you're not good at and don't energize you, it's going to be an extra level of burden of dampening you down.
Yeah, I mean, the thing also is, bearing in mind where we're heading, in a very uncertain world in September when schools go back.
Yeah.
How do you two think that leaders need to prepare themselves in terms of coping with the emotional challenges that they're going to face? And I think there is a bit of narrative going around at the moment around. I probably think half of the country thinks that all the actions that have been taken by senior politicians, actually they've done the best they can in very difficult circumstances. These are unique times. But there's another group that say, well, actually this isn't good enough. Actually, I suspect that there are going to be parents and staff and even perhaps governors who perhaps were sitting in either of those camps. I doubt whether all the staff will be saying, oh, well, these are unprecedented times. We've got to give quite a bit of slack here. How are senior leaders going to manage that emotional challenge in terms of how they're questioned about the decisions they're going to be making and when they go wrong?
The strength, for one thing, is that those aren't balanced. I remember talking about a head teacher I know who when the shutdown came, did everything, got 400 pupils on roll. One parent went absolutely berserk about what he thought, and that was the one that the head spoke to me about, not the 399 who were giving him lots of support. So that balance of somebody in the negative camp, somebody in the positive camp, you doesn't matter how many you've got in the positive, it depends which one you're prepared to listen to. And the negative one is the one that eats into your psyche.
Yeah, it is. I think in here, it's always asking the question around what's the opportunity. So for me, it's an opportunity for leaders to really understand the value system that they want to play to. In terms of coming back in September, it's an opportunity to really think about what's the direction of travel in terms of values and purpose and behaviours and feel and style of my educational establishment that I want to go with. Because, going back to your point, Frank, around some people will think that the government of today has dealt with it as best they could because nobody's had these circumstances, and others are sort of going back to your capability question around, well, actually, I think pretty much anybody could have done a better job than they have. So the truth is in the middle somewhere. So I think it's also, in terms of situational awareness, in terms of dealing with uncertainty, it's thinking about the value system of our government of today, just what they believe in, where they come from, and they've faced into this situation with that value system. It's like, who have they chosen to look after or support? What process have they put in place? It's against the blueprint of this is the type of society that we want. So for me, it's an opportunity for educational leaders to go, what type of society do you want my educational establishment to be? And then I'll lead towards that. But what I think first things first is, it's really trying to get educational leaders to understand where they might be on a tipping point. So no human being could have had to deal with all the things that head teachers have had to deal with recently. Just listening to, vicariously, people I know in education, just when they've just sort of drip fed. I just did a list of, I did X, Y, Z, A, B, C today. I just go, God, that's off the scale. Amazing what you've managed to achieve, but they haven't noticed it. But everything that they do has been battering their resiliency levels. So I know that I'm biased around this, but it's a case of it's trying to support education leaders at this moment in time to ask for some help, collaborate, talk to somebody, talk to anybody, to just go, I've been doing a lot of things recently. I just need to learn from what I've enjoyed and what's not gone well. And I need to take a moment to pause, reflect, learn and understand, and then decide how I'm going to do things going forward. But the biggest thing I think everybody has to do now is collaborate. So it's like, if you haven't spoken to some fellow head teachers in different schools recently, pick up the phone, call somebody up, and just go, how's it going, and what can we learn from this? How can we support each other going forward?
I think there's a case as well internal of the school to do that kind of conversation with the senior
Absolutely.
manager, and to be open. I do think, people who put their hands up and say, look, this is new to me, so I might make mistakes on this, are far more likely to get through this than those who think they've got it and they know it and they're not going to show any weakness.
Yeah. And I know, Frank, you've asked the question a couple of times around how do people do with the emotions around this. So it is working on your resilience. So there's the resilience wheel on my website. There's 7 aspects around resilience. Just spending some time on those is a good thing. That will then help you with your emotional regulation and your emotional intelligence, understanding the thoughts and feelings you're having. A lot of self-compassion. That's one of my top tips around resilience. Whatever thoughts and feelings you're having, it's okay. It's just that then what are you going to do with them? How are they helping you and supporting you at this moment in time? And so the positive byproducts of being more resilient is to be able to face into uncertainty. So it isn't necessarily, I've got to face into uncertainty. It's like, I'll work on my resilience so that I can deal better with uncertainty, and it helps better the regulation, and it also helps with being adaptable as well. You need to build your resiliency levels to enable you to be more adaptable. Whilst adaptability is one of the components of resilience, they're actually separate and different and support each other. So for me, it's not a chicken and egg. It's like, work on your resilience, and then these other things that you've got to do, that will be a positive byproduct of having worked upon your resilience.
Isn't there a problem, though, that for some leaders, and it's probably a sign of a preferred style of leadership, or a perceived preferred style of leadership, whereby you are seen as the leader, like the captain of the ship type thing, and actually morphing then into this sort of more collaborative, engaging individual, something that's perhaps not going to come very easily to somebody who's probably been very successful. I can think of head teachers who are in schools where that type of leadership has been the leadership that's made that school successful. But the school really hasn't had this sort of like deep, troubled period, and I worry about how they can morph into a different type of leader, because they're simply not practiced it or skilled enough in it. They're not built in a way to deliver that type of leadership.
Yeah, for me, it would be having somebody on the governing body that will have that conversation. So it's the chair of governors, it's the vice chair, or the one that's got responsibility for the personal development of the of the school. Yeah, using pure logic, you would hope one of those would be having a supportive chat with the head teacher, to just go how things are. It's research shows that it's good for somebody to have a sounding board. Who is that for you? So that there has to be a way in. Somebody has to be thinking about these things that we are to go. Yeah, the head teacher's been going through an awful lot. We do talk about strong leadership is somebody absolutely at the front forging ahead. But if you keep going for so long, there's a tipping point. You'll fall over. So it's trying to find a way to get somebody within the school to recognise that. Even if a member of staff, feels brave enough to go up to their teacher and sort of go, so, how are you? Who's supporting you? That would be amazing if a member of staff just sort of said, I've just been thinking about all the things that you've had to deal with, and I'm just wondering who's been supporting you.
Yeah, I have to say, I mean, not in this level of difficulty, but I had 2 or 3 members of staff who would actually do that. They would actually come in and ask me how I was, and was I coping? Was I dealing with things? And that was first time it felt insulting. I'm being, am I dealing with it? And then after that, it felt really supportive, and that they actually cared about not just me, but how the school was running and how it affected everybody. And they became a sounding board of a type, but they were also a touchstone as to how the staff were feeling. So those people would feel the emotions in the school and come and say to me, I think we need to do A, B, or C. Future leaders, they all thinking about it. All 3 of the ones I'm thinking about went on to become head teachers. So perhaps there's something in that. The other thing is that the heads I've worked with who've really struggled are those that wear a mask, that think headship is a role that you move into and you play the part, and they're not genuine about who they are and what they're doing. I think they get hit the hardest.
Yeah, and when you're under pressure, everybody reverts back to who they are. It's not as if you haven't got time to prepare the script. You basically, the knee jerk takes you to where you are, as a human being. And in a way, that's why I think the points that you, Russell, and you, Stan, have been making is about that reflection for leaders as to this presents opportunities as well, doesn't it? To think about, for me, this week has been about the suitability of the examination system. You get yourself into this rut and you think, well, actually, we've got to deliver these exams. Well, actually, you then got to start thinking, hang on a minute, why are we delivering these exams? What's the impact of that on the curriculum? Where's all this leading? Who's managing it? And I think at that level, it's allowed me to reflect on where the future might be. But in a way, if you're a head teacher of a school, this is a fantastic opportunity if you can get your head into it. We're going to do things differently. This has been a seismic change. We admit to the fact that we haven't done this well enough, or whatever it may be. Bring people on board with that vision.
Just on that reflection, please, Frank. It might be useful now to just define my view of what resilience is, because it's a word that's been banded down a lot. And I saw yesterday that the New York Times is going to do a series on resilience, but its opening article is actually, we're all fed up with the word, so let's ignore it.
Yeah, I saw that. I actually saw that yesterday.
But oh God, no. So I need to read the article.
It might be my business out.
But I get it, because I have written a blog where resilience becomes a dirty word. So I get that. So resilience is bandied around a lot more recently. But on your reflection point, so dictionary definition of resilience is recovering from adversity. So I'm all interested in, so how does that work? 9 times out of 10 when people talk about resilience, they say the word bounce back. I'm personally not a fan of that, because I think there's a risk around that. It's like life's experiences happen to us, we faced into them, and if we then go, so I'm going to bounce back to how I was before, I just get nervous around that. For me, this is my phraseology, life's experiences happen to us, we face into them, and then we reflect and we learn and we spring forward. So I'm on a one-person crusade of like, can we use spring forward instead of bounce back, please? But that's all about that reflection. But then the question is, that goes back to how much leaders do genuinely reflect. I appreciate in education there's massive amounts of reflective practice. We're always doing continuous improvement, but I don't think that's the type of human reflection, personal reflection that we need people to do.
That's really interesting.
I'm not convinced there's that much reflective practice genuinely.
No, neither am I. So
perhaps it's the fact that we're not in a culture in education whereby we seek out, we honestly seek out guidance and support from other colleagues. No. Seek out the voices that will just confirm what we're doing is the right thing, and tend to sort of have those as friends. So I think the thing for me is whether or not, whether we need to give more power to those people that are actually a bit challenging to you, who actually are brave enough to stand up and speak honestly to a leader, because we need to hear those voices as much as ones just confirm what we're doing.
It's about being able to be vulnerable. So it's loads of buzzwords that we throw around in these conversations, but it is how do we enable people to just, a leader to turn around and go, not doing great right now. It doesn't always have to be the negative. It doesn't always have to be the negative, but just to being able to just go to somebody and go, could do with a coffee, could do with a chat, could just do with a moment. And the fancy terminology as well around it is how it's psychological safety. How psychologically safe is it in a particular leadership team? Because somebody just sort of go, fancy just having a share and an offload. If anybody listen to this, I've started, I've signed up to newsletters. I might get the name wrong. Duena Blomstrand. She's got loads of fantastic stuff around psychological safety. That's her thing, her bag. So I'm on her email list, and there's just lots of brilliant tips and ideas that are in there as well. I think so. It's Duena Blomstrand, I think her name is.
So as we're getting to the end here now, because I've had just nearly 25 minutes, if somebody's interested in you, Russell, how do they get in contact with you?
Yeah, so the website is all the W's, theresiliencecoach.co.uk, and email russell@theresiliencecoach.co.uk, and details are on there. I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter as well, so just put in the Resilience Coach into a search engine, and it will probably pop up, fingers crossed. Worked hard on trying to get towards the top of that list. But yeah, it's literally, it's a case of just get in touch, and let's just have a first conversation and just see where you are.
Okay, Stan, that's another week gone by.
I know.
The
one thing I was going to say, Frank, is though we keep talking about this opportunity to reflect generally on education. The opportunity is fast running out, isn't it? And we haven't really done it. I don't know if you saw Lord Baker on TV. It was actually, I was surprised at some of his comments, pleasantly surprised, because he was saying, well, why are we still doing GCSEs? Because actually GCSEs, because most pupils left at that point and needed a paper qualification, and now it's 18.
Yeah.
So why are we still, why don't we just do some exams at 8? And I thought we don't do that kind of reflection. The whys. Why are we doing this?
Yeah, I mean,
I just think I'm worried that the opportunity we've got now is going to disappear again.
Just so that I can sort of close it down a little bit here, because we've another 30 minutes on this. But actually, when I was the CEO of the Co-op Academies Trust, we started looking at a co-op baccalaureate, and we were very keen to have much more community involvement, volunteering, broader aspects of assessment in a way, so that we didn't actually boil it down to putting kids into a hot room in the summer months and ask them to push out everything they know over a 2-hour period. So I think that I do see this as a great opportunity, and actually getting people into their heads. Actually, this is the time to start looking forward, and if you do want to reflect and do things differently, this is the time. And we need to encourage people to do this at a macro level, but heads need to be thinking about themselves and how they can change, I think, as well. So thank you, Russell. Thank you, Stan.
No, my pleasure.
It's great chat, and I think we'll be back next week, so we'll see you all then.